Alrighty, welcome to another podcast episode of Got Questions. We have here where you got questions. Hopefully, we got some answers, and we have another great question today. Great question. I've read this one before, and I was like, "Wow, great question." And with us, we have Mr. Randy, the MC host of Mr. Got Questions on our church podcast. You can find online. Anywhere that has podcasts available, you can download it, listen to some of the great discussions that him and I and Pastor Gordon Rumble, Dan Elliott have had. Also on our call, we have Pastor Kevin Hassenfuss, the student ministry pastor, high school pastor at Big Valley Grace in Modesto. Welcome, guys. It's great to see you. Everyone's looking great. This is hopefully, it looks like we're getting to the end of this COVID-19 stuff, and hopefully we'll be able to see everyone in person real soon. I miss that. And so it's kind of looking like we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, guys. So that's really cool. Hopefully we can do something like this live in person. That'd be cool too. Have a student ministry gathering either on a Wednesday or something where we can do this. So students, keep writing your questions and thinking of them. We're not done with those. Those are fun. And so, Kevin, you're going to read for us. Someone asked you a question that is really great to think about of Jesus's knowledge. So why don't you read us this question, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So the question kind of came in like a roundabout way. At first, when it was asked, the student really wasn't sure where the question even came from, or where in Scripture it was found. And so I actually had them go back and figure out, where does the question actually exist? Where does it stem from? And so the question, as it is stated, is, it says in Scripture that only God knows the end of the world. How come Jesus is God, but he doesn't know? And so I then went back to him and said, tell me where in Scripture you pull that opinion from. And so he then pulled out Mark 13:32 as the Scripture reference in which he has come to that opinion. And so I'm going to go ahead and read Mark 13:32. And this is what Jesus says. It says, but concerning that day or that hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. So that is the verse at which he pulls that opinion from. And so open your discussion.
Wow.
And if you want me to start, I can start.
Kev Dog, let me say this. You always do a great job of this. You say, we always need the context. You need the verses before and the verses after. So what did you pick up with that right there?
So what we have here is, context-wise, right before that is a teaching of Jesus called the lesson of the fig tree. But what he says at the end of that lesson of the fig tree is, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Directly after the verse that was kind of the focal point of the question, he then says, be on guard, keep awake, for you do not know when the time will come. And so context-wise, you get a sense of what Jesus is trying to instill in the people he's teaching in person, and also us today who are living lives surrendered to him. I think that the root of the question, or the question is a great question, but what Jesus is addressing, I think, is a bigger command and an urgency for us, not necessarily him being Jesus in human form. But let's kick it around. Let's kick it around as the question stated, and let's really grasp what Jesus is teaching in Mark 13. So, what are your thoughts on the question as it is stated? How come Jesus
go ahead, Randy. You got something.
So, I gotta say, it occurs to me that this question is really fundamentally about the Trinity. So, in 25 words or less, what's the Trinity, Matt?
Yeah. Well, Randy, you actually did a great, just honestly, in Club 56, you taught on the Trinity, and it was great. You did a great job with that, and you explained how they're all one, but they're not. They all work. It was, man, even when you try to unpack the Trinity, it's still super hard to understand. You know why? Because we're human, right? It's hard to understand how three things work as one, but they're separate, but they're the same. And so there's God the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. They're all equal. They're all one. They all, Pastor Joel shared with us how they all submit to one another, but they work in harmony, which is amazing. But they're all do their own thing. We have the Holy Spirit living in us, which is super cool. But with that, we also have Jesus and God with us too. But with this, to me, what Jesus is saying is he goes into talking about right after this verse about how the master of a house goes. And if he leaves his servants in charge, he doesn't tell them when he's coming back. If he comes back, how is he going to find you type of thing? If I don't know when, say Kevin left me in charge of high school ministry, he's like, hey, dude, I have to go run an errand. I'll be right back. Or I got to go run an errand. And he leaves. How do I want the ministry to look when he comes back? The kids running around in chaos, I'm just kind of sitting there twiddling my thumbs? Or do I want to make sure that it's organized, it's well, that it's a safe place, that someone's leading it well? Because I don't know he didn't tell me when he was coming back. And that's kind of what he's referring to is our faith. We don't want to be caught sleeping. What he's saying right here when he's saying no one knows that hour, this verse isn't about his lack of knowledge. It's just saying how no one knows. So always be ready, be alert for when that is. He's talking about the human part of no one knows. And when Jesus left heaven, he gave up that the all-knowing attributes of God. He gave that up selflessly. He came here and now he's talking about his humanity, saying, listen, as a human, I don't know just as much as you, right? But him and the Father obviously are one. Does the Father know? Yes. But right here in this verse, he's talking about his humanity part. He doesn't know when that is, just like none of us know, and saying how no one knows that hour. So there are people out there that will claim saying this is the end, this is the time, on this date this is happening, but that's no one knows. And I remember the first time, this is just a total sidetrack, the first time I started questioning, wait, how does he not know, was I read a verse, and I think it's in First Peter. Kevin might know, or Randy, you might know too, where it talks about how even the angels are eagerly watching things happen. The angels are eagerly watching, they don't even know everything that's happening. And it's like, they're with God. Oh, I didn't even know that they don't know everything that's happening. They're just watching things happen. They don't even know. And so that verse to me really surprised me. I think it was a few years ago or long. I don't remember how long it was, but when I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness, not everyone knows. Not everyone up in heaven knows. Only God knows. But at this point, Jesus is talking about us as humans. We don't know. So just be on guard, be ready. That to me is the whole understanding of this verse. But Randy, I'll kick it back to you as 25 words or less.
So I hear what you're saying, Matt. I feel like you're with the question, what you're saying is that the reason that Jesus doesn't know, and I get your point about that's not his true message. His bigger message is way bigger than whether the Son knows or doesn't know. But specifically about whether the Son knows, your point is he humbled himself when he came down to earth, when he became incarnate. He chose to give up. And I did a little reading, and it was really interesting because the way they phrased it, I thought, this is perfect for this day and age. What it said was, he was never not God, but it was more like his deity or his godlike powers were in sleep mode. So think of your video games, his godlike powers were in sleep mode. They were still there, but he didn't have access to them while he was on earth before he was glorified and went up to heaven. And there's a verse that I pulled out because I thought this is really where it talks about that very thing. And I can tell by the look on Kevin's eye, he is right there with me. Philippians chapter 2, verses 6 through 8. So who, being in the very nature of God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. So they're talking about Jesus here. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant. And by servant, I think he means human. Instead of being a God, he went into that servant form, and being made in human likeness. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself. Notice it says he humbled himself, not that he was humbled, but he chose it by become obedient to death, even on a cross. So I think that backs up exactly what you're saying, Matt. The idea that he chose to give up some of his powers didn't make him not God, didn't mean he wasn't still God.
Right.
But when he became incarnate, he became man. And so, for instance, he felt hunger, when he was being tempted in the desert. At least my faith, I'm fairly certain that God doesn't feel hunger. Fairly certain God doesn't get hungry. He's all, the know all, the be all, the end all. He doesn't have that limitation that he needs food. But Jesus, when he came down and became a man, had all of those limitations on him so he could fully embrace what it is to be a man. And if he had those the deity, if those were active in him, it wouldn't have been the same of him being a man. So I think he felt pain, he felt hunger, he felt thirst, he felt the desire to sin, which I think is a crazy thing to think about. We talked about that in another podcast. But he also didn't know, and he didn't have access to all the knowledge that he had when he was in heaven with the Father. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that the real thing that we wrestle with in modern day Christianity is not necessarily the Jesus as God aspect. It's the Jesus as human aspect. And, it's so funny because when you look at when Jesus walked the earth, the religious authorities of the day, they looked at human Jesus. They didn't wrestle with the human aspect of Jesus. They wrestled with the God aspect of Jesus.
Nice.
But now we wrestle backwards. We recognize, especially us that, name the name of Christ as Christians, we recognize Jesus as God. But we wrestle with the human side of Jesus.
Wow.
But Randy, the verse you shared is dead on. No one forced Jesus into that position of servant, but he willingly ascended from heaven and he put on, a human likeness. And in doing so, it's one thing to just put on flesh, but there's so much more that's all encompassing in what Jesus did in putting on human flesh. And putting on human flesh, he put on his human heart, and with that heart came emotions. I actually have a quote here. It says, "Christ has put on our feelings along with our flesh." See, Jesus knew before he ever ascended what it was like to be God. He understood God, and he understood the Father's will and the Father's plan, and he's a perfect piece of that Trinity. And then as he ascends from heaven to earth, he puts on human likeness, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes with it. He experiences what it is to have a human heart that's also filled with those human emotions, those frailties. In addition to the human heart, he puts on a human mind, and since he has a human mind, he no longer has a mind of the Father, to use Randy's phrase. His mind that is super intertwined and interlinked with the Father is put on sleep mode, and now he has to ask for the Father's will. He has to discern the Father's will in the same way that we have to do the same thing through the word that he's given us and through the Holy Spirit that indwells us. It says in Luke 2:52 that Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. And that's really important for us to recognize, that as he's growing up and as he's maturing, he's going through that sanctification process. It's not that there's any sin in his life that needs to be justified, but he is he is growing in stature and favor with God and with man. So there's a maturation process that even goes on in young human Jesus. And the other thing that's really important for us to understand about Jesus's humanity, because he's fully human and fully God, is that also as he puts on flesh, he inherits a human will, which is super crazy to think about. Because you know Jesus, and he's all about the will of the Father, the heart of the Father. But yet, because he is because he is human, he has this will that is of a human. And so while he was in heaven, he had this infinite understanding of God's will and God's plan. And as he enters the position of servant, being here on earth in human likeness, he now has this finite will and finite understanding in the same way that you, in the same way that I have that as well. We have pieces. And what we have to do is try to discern the Father's will against our will. In the same way that Jesus wants to do nothing apart from the Father's will, that should be how we are to live. Not sure of the day that he's ever going to come back. We should have that same heart. Am I discerning the Father's will for my life, for my day? What will that be for me today? John 6:38 says, I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. And in Matthew 26:39, Jesus prays to the Father, not as I will, but as you will. And that right there, both of those statements show his humanness, because he has a desire to do the Father's will, and he has to continually seek out what the Father's will is, which is why so many times throughout the Gospels, you see Jesus retreat, you see Jesus pray, you see Jesus go to the mountaintops to have those times to be with the Father. What is he doing? He's seeking the Father's will, so that he can be in perfect accordance with it, because he has put on a human heart, a human mind, and with it comes a human will, which is pretty cool that Jesus was able to live out a perfect life in accordance with the Father's will in a full human form.
Wow. Thanks, Kev. Yeah, man, that's really cool. I think also what you're saying too is what Jesus did know and what we know is he is coming back. Right? Even though he didn't say when it is, he knew he was coming back, and that could be any day. And that's all we need to know too. Live every day as if he is coming back. If he were to come back today, how would he find you? In sleep mode or ready to go? That was good, Kev. That was good. Randy, you got any addition to that? What Pastor Kevin said?
You know, I think Kevin nailed it. I think it's fascinating to talk about Christ's human side, because it's so difficult for me to comprehend, because you're exactly right, Kevin. We look at him rightfully so as God, but when he was walking this earth, I love that you talked about his will, because it is a contrast. Because if there was no contrast, they wouldn't even talk about it. But the fact that he says, not my will, but your will, which indicates that his will might have been different than God's will, because he was human, which is a crazy thing to think about, the fact that Jesus' own human will may have been to go down this path. And you see it even at the place of the skull where he says, you know, hey, take this cup from me. You know, he could see, you know, things are about to go sideways really bad, and I'm going to feel this terrible pain. I'm not hip to it. I'm not loving it. But you know what, God, if that's what you want, that's what I'll do. But it's really fascinating because oftentimes when I know I put myself in those places, and I think, man, if I was Jesus, I wouldn't have, what would happen to those Roman guards if they were beating me and I was a god and everything, or I was God? That's crazy. But that's what made, when you think about this, taking a bigger picture aspect, that's why the sacrifice worked. Because if Jesus had been, if he had all of his deity powers and it was no big deal for him not to sin, then that wouldn't have been a sacrifice. the very thing that made it a sacrifice was that he felt that tension. And my wife and I have had this conversation before about the temptation, because she would say, "Oh no, absolutely not. Jesus wasn't tempted. He had no desire to do that." And I said, "Oh no. The fact that he was tempted and he overcame that temptation, he still was obedient to God, is what made that sacrifice worth it. That's what made him holy." So I think I don't know. This is a fascinating question for me. So I could go on for days just talking about his human nature, because I just find it fascinating.
Yeah, and Kevin, you brought up a good point too. It's interesting the reverse wrestle. That I've never thought of it like that. How when then they weren't wrestling with him as a human. It was that he's God, and we're the opposite. That was very fascinating. I'm gonna have to. That's a great idea for like a sermon topic, by the way.
Totally. Hey, and here's the thing, and that's not my idea. That's not unique to our generation or even the generations before us. That was the first heresy of the early church, was that Jesus was God, but not fully man. And you see John address it in 1 John and 2 John, that no, Jesus was both fully God and fully man. That was the first heresy in the church, where all these teachers were starting to rise up and attack Jesus's humanness. They weren't attacking his godliness, but they were attacking the fact that he wasn't fully human. He was maybe partially human or a little bit human, but he wasn't fully human. And John says, no, don't get that wrong. In the way that Randy said it, that's what makes the sacrifice beautiful, is that he felt the pain and he felt the emotion and he felt the tension of, am I going to abide in the Father's will, or am I going to seek out my own will, which, if I'm honest, is going to be a lot more pleasant for my life on this earth.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
And what a message to us that Jesus, being fully human, spent so much time seeking the will of God. And what a message to us, where we say, "Oh, I didn't have time to read my Bible today. I didn't have time to do this. I didn't have time to do that." But yet the one person who is fully God and fully human spent a lot of time being with God to discern his will. And let's be honest, you don't get much closer to God than God. And the fact that he still needed to spend that time is a real message to us that maybe we're not spending enough time in the Word ourselves.
And he was busy too. He was super busy. People from all over were coming to see him. He had to get away. He had to get away from the crowd, but he still to make that time.
Yeah.
So that's great. How convicting is that when we say that we're busy? Because he was he was making the lame walk.
Well, I remember one time specifically, Jesus, I can't remember which town exactly he's teaching in or healing people in, but he heals people late into the night, and then he wakes up early in the morning to be with the Lord, and then his disciples, they go and go to stir him. "Hey, we got tons of people for you to heal out here," and he goes, "No, we're leaving. Like, we're going to this next place." And how often do we look at the things that we've placed, high importance on, because healing people is a really good thing, but we forget to make that time to discern, what does God have for us today? What's his highest priority? What's his highest yes? And I bet you a lot of times, if we were willing to relinquish our day to him to that magnitude, he would give us a different highest yes, or he would start to bring people to our minds that he has for us to reach out to. But we're so caught up in our own plan and our own highest priorities that, on the days we forget to consult him.
Yeah, pastor one time told me, Pastor Tim Gianosa, if you guys know him that are listening, but he told me one time like how important it is to spend each day in the Word, just like Pastor Rick Countryman, our co-senior pastor here, tells us, spend each day in the Word, because God has something for you today. What you found yesterday in your quiet time was for yesterday, but what is here today, that's what God has planned for you today. So just like you're saying, Kevin, is when he spent that time, it was, hey, no, today, this is where we're going. This is what God's put on my heart today. This is what God's put, who we're supposed to go to today. So how important it is, because there's times, say we go 3 days without reading and we just reflect on that one passage that we saw 3 days ago. It's like, no, that was for 3 days ago, Matt. I had something planned for you for today. So how important is that each and every day that we spend that time with God? Because he's getting, just like Kevin said, my favorite quiet time, I've shared this with my leaders before, and especially Randy, is my favorite quiet times in the car. And my goal is to pray. And when God brings someone to my mind, I give them a call. And whenever I call, it's always this, like, the conversations are amazing. Like, they're sad and hard, but the conversations, it's like God put that person on my mind for a reason. And I always try to take advantage of it and say, okay, don't make excuses. Just reach out to them, because there's a reason why they're on your mind today.
Yeah.
So, man, that's good, Kev. That's good. Man, well, I think that we did a pretty good job. This was a really fun topic. I think
That was a good one.
we could keep going in like all different directions, right? I mean, this is
yeah.
just super cool. I just, even just thinking of Jesus as human, just these conversations that he has with them, to me, when we read, it's like, of course, how they not get it? How they not get what he's saying? But imagine if Randy was talking to us like this. I'll be back. You don't know what I am. But all of a sudden we'd be like, dude, what are you talking about? I could give you living water and the bread of life. It's like, dude, what are you, like, I could see how they could see that super confusing. But for us, we're like, no, how they miss it? I would love to just see what that would have been like. But here's something cool is God knew when he created us that this is the time we were supposed to be in. And he knew that we didn't need back then to spend, this is the time. I think that's humbling too. It's like, hey, we were designed for this time period. And that's just a weird.
Predestined, if you will.
Boom.
and also, let's go there again.
we also brought up the heaven and earth will pass away too. And if you guys didn't get a chance, our last discussion was on that. So if you want to go back and watch that, you can. If you have any further questions for us, we love them. Make sure you go to our student resources page on bvg.org/student resources and go to the bottom of the page. Click Got Questions, submit your question, and we love to tackle that, talk about it, discuss it. You students are awesome. We can't wait to see you guys. Randy, Kevin, you guys are awesome. Thank you for your time, and your answers are awesome. They're great to meditate on and think on. So thank you guys very much.
All right.
Take care. God bless.